January 6th was the culmination of an attempted coup, a brazen attempt, as one rioter put it shortly after January 6th, to overthrow the government. The violence was no accident.
You are watching.
Join me as we unravel what happened at the big Apple June event. That's right, Apple WWDC. Also on the show, we try to figure out what this social media bug is all about. Yes, that's right, social media addiction. Now, back in the day, you all used to do channel surfing and switch the channel if you found it boring. Please don't do that right now. Well, now what we do is we just swipe up and we move on to the next video or the next reel. Is this a problem that India's youth is suffering from today? Well, we try to find out on this special episode of Tech Today. Each year in June, Apple hosts a mega event called Worldwide Developers Conference in San Francisco. In fact, it's at Apple Park, and Tech Today was supposed to be there. But I was in isolation and I had to shoot this show. So we thought, what's the next best thing? If you're feeling a sense of FOMO, we have to get in touch with someone at Apple Park and figure out what was WWDC all about. The entire week, there was all the software announcements from the Apple stables and hardware announcements as well.
Apple WWDC Worldwide Developer Conference 2022, the big Apple June event, went on in full gusto this past week. And now, of course, in the build-up to this event, we at Tech Today told you that this year, the flagship software conference will have a bunch of hardware surprises as well. And it did. The keynote was on 6th of June, and given the numerous changes here announced to the Apple ecosystem, it looks like Apple finally means business. If you're an Apple fan in India, then here are the most exciting things coming your way. First and foremost, iOS 16 is getting a major overhaul, a revamped lock screen which can be customized to almost Android levels of personalization, and that's really something to say. Dictation features have gotten a lot better with Siri, and you will soon be able to unsend texts on the iMessage. Apple also gave us a sneak peek of what CarPlay really looks like, its car infotainment system interface, and the preview indeed looked quite amazing with new widgets and controls galore, but it will only be coming our way late next year. So Ayush and team, of course, will be surely covering that on this show when they take the next big EV out for a spin. Did you know that nearly 1 in every 3 smartwatches in the world is an Apple Watch? Its market share is nearly 3 times a lot more than Samsung in the smartwatch space, according to a recent report by Counterpoint. And that's why there would be a lot of people interested in the changes that's coming to the watchOS 9 for the Apple Watch. The workout app is certainly getting updated here as per what we see, and most importantly, better sleep tracking features are finally coming to the Sleep app, allowing users now to track their core, deep and REM sleep patterns. The life-saving AFib functions will be improved as well, making the watch an indispensable health device. Now for the Mac fans, there's a new OS coming and it's called Ventura. It now offers new multitasking features like Stage Manager, which lets users group windows and switch between apps quite easily. There's a lot of other changes, but the real showstopper here seems to be Continuity Camera, which, wait for it, lets you use the iPhone as a web camera and use the amazing Apple features on the other video calling apps as well. But of course, as we told you a couple of weeks ago, there had to be a hardware surprise, and it was indeed a big one. The new MacBook Air with the mighty M2 is finally here with a 13.6-inch display. It packs the new M2 chip, 2 Thunderbolt ports, and comes with up to 18 hours of battery life. Dolby Atmos speakers in 4 color options and starting at $1,199. They also showcased a MacBook Pro with the M2 chip, and these laptops will be coming into India next month and will cost a fair bit more. There was also an iPad OS announcement, but it really pales in comparison to the things that we just highlighted for you here. All in all, this was indeed one of the most eventful WWDCs in recent years, and it really looks like now a lot of Android fans will certainly be curious about what just happened at Apple Park. Well, Ayush, you must be quite upset that you missed this one, huh?
Now, watching and listening to all those announcements from afar and attending so many virtual briefings over the past couple of days, I'm keen to soon use my iPhone as a web camera. But when it comes to WWDC, well, there was good news and bad news. What do you want, the bad news first or the good news first? Well, let's find out either way.
Well, like I said, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is I couldn't make it to WWDC. The good news is a friend of mine, Nishant Padiyar, did make it, and he's been at the event all week. Nishant, thanks so much for joining us on Tech Today. This is a FOMO moment for me, but now for the Tech Today community, you have to let us know what's the experience been like being back at Apple Park.
First of all, thank you so much, Ayush, for having me on the show. And I can tell you the experience, the vibe, it's absolutely electric. And for me, it's been, I think, the fourth or fifth time that I'm coming here. And even then, the experience does not get any less significant, because from the moment the bus enters Apple Park, and the first time you get a glimpse of the spaceship campus, I mean, you really get goosebumps if you are a tech nerd. And then you see the Steve Jobs Theater, and you have greeters at every intervals of 10 meters, 20 meters, who are like building the hype and welcoming you to Apple Park. And then when you actually enter, and this was the first time when they actually did the event, not in the Steve Jobs Theater, but it was actually out in the open, in the lawns. So there was a huge amount of crowd, although they've said that that they have a limited amount of journos and devs on site. It didn't feel so. It actually felt like a rock concert, because there were at least about 2,000 people there. And the vibe was just fantastic, with the Apple employees. And when Tim Cook gets on stage, it's almost like, Bono has gotten on stage. So the crowd just erupts into, it's fantastic. You have to be there to believe it. It's like watching a cricket match in a stadium.
I can imagine. I can only imagine, because this one looked electric. Also, all of us were back traveling with a vengeance, because we've been at home for so long. We've seen so many of these launch events from home. And well, I saw it at home yet again. But since you were there, something that a lot of us were connected on was social media. And on Instagram, Twitter, a lot of us were talking about it. But one big change that came from the software side of things, and there is a hardware surprise that we all know about now, was iOS 16 getting quite a decent sort of overhaul. In my view, Nishant, I thought it looked a lot more like Apple taking one step back and saying, okay, let's also consider the Android way, because this looked pop colors, very interesting ways of using even the clock on the home screen. Did it seem Apple-esque to you?
Well, in the last few years, they have been playing a bit of catch-up to Android in terms of functionality of the lock screen. And now with Glance, on Android, if people know what Glance is, where you can do a lot more, you can interact with your phone a lot more with Glance on Android. I think this is Apple's way of going the Glance way, but actually make it even better and make it slightly more secure as well, because it's not just the customization of the emojis, of the colors, of the fonts. It also goes, I think, one step ahead, because it also integrates with focus. So the moment you change the lock screens, you can also just swipe away your work. So for example, if you're clocking out of work at 5 p.m., you can just with a swipe change the lock screen. And with that, you won't just be changing the lock screen, but also all the settings of. So suddenly you can get into personal mode. So you can shut down work emails, you can shut down work calls. So I think Apple has done, as they usually do, a much more deeper integration of the active lock screen. And I'm really excited to actually use it.
We're both on iPads having this conversation. And I found something fascinating, which largely comes in from the fact that I don't need to use my MacBook camera anymore. And that's a separate change. For the iPad, there were smaller changes. And this, a lot of Apple fanboys and tech geeks have discussed before, that the iPad is not becoming a MacBook anytime soon. Those operating systems are going to be watertight different. They keep talking about it, that they're going to add that functionality to the iPad, but it's still not there. Yeah. It's a great device in what it is. So I think the iPad is a long way off from when we get that super device, which you can actually use as a touch screen, have the functionality of the iPad, the great displays, and of course, also get the keyboard-like functionality and the OS of a MacBook. But when we're talking about MacBooks, something that I found very interesting with their new macOS Ventura for content creators, and this is something that stood out for me, is the fact that you can use continuity camera, something which is ingenious. I think the last time they bowled us over, Nishant, was with universal control. And now with just this, that you can use your iPhone now as a web camera and really get the best out of your iPhone camera and not deal with these pixelated cameras that we have on our other devices.
It's a great feature. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And what is even more innovative, I think, again, a bit of Apple special sauce on it is that they have something called the desk view, which basically simulates an overhead camera using the ultra-wide camera from your iPhone. So you place the iPhone on top of your iPad or your Mac, and just using the ultra-wide camera without changing the angle of your screen, it actually emulates what you would have as an overhead camera view, which is great for making unboxing videos for creators like us again. That is, I think, I think had a huge response and huge applause from the crowd live at the event as well, because people were not expecting that at all. It just blindsided everybody, and it was a bit of that Apple special sauce and magic dust.
No, absolutely. And in terms of the other things that were also done, I think there were, of course, a bunch of changes to macOS Ventura, and then one more thing, which happened to be the hardware surprise that we were waiting for. The MacBook Air is here. It comes with the mighty M2, and I think you got a hands-on with it as well.
I did, and it feels different. It feels a bit of like a MacBook Pro, because they've gotten rid of the wedge shape, which has been iconic since the first time Steve Jobs unveiled it from the from the Manila envelope many years ago, and it's been basically the similar design, just different iterations of it over the last decade or so. So this is the first time that the MacBook Air is seeing a complete change in terms of the form factor. So it feels closer to the MacBook Pro now because it's flatter, but it feels very dense. And I use the Midnight shade, which is the new one, and it feels absolutely stunning. Again, typically Apple, in terms of its build quality, in terms of its finish, in terms of its denseness, the way the lid shuts down. But of course, it's all about the power, performance, and the fanless design. So it feels so light in your hands, and at the same time, I think I had about 10-15 minutes with it. We opened Photoshop, we opened Final Cut Pro, we opened FaceTime. All of these apps were on at the same time and all popped up instantly. There's no waiting, there's no lag, there's no spinning wheel, the rainbow wheel that we're used to for a large software to open up. So I think M2 is really a big step up over the M1, but they are very, very particular about just laying down the facts that the M1 Ultra and the M1 Max and the M1 Pro will still be more powerful than the M2. So the M2 will still remain the entry level. If you want slightly more power for the real professional needs, you will have to still use the M1 Ultra Max or the Pro.
And with a sense of FOMO, I am still grateful that you joined us on Tech Today. Thanks so much, Nishant. And I really hope that you enjoy your sunny days in San Francisco.
Thank you so much, Ayush. Pleasure being here.
Look, the first half of the show was largely coming to you from developments in San Francisco. But I'll tell you a global problem which finds a lot of its roots in India as well, because social media apps like Instagram are perhaps the most popular in a country like India. You get onto a train, you get onto the subway, and everyone is swiping up, using reels and short form video and stuff like that. It is quite addictive. But is it genuinely a problem for India's youth? The second half of the show is all about that. So please don't swipe up, please don't switch the channel. We're going to come to you with a very special presentation.
India's #1 political reporter
defines what seems to be happening, vendetta politics. कोई दूध के से धुला हुआ नहीं है.
Unmatched eye, unmatched experience.
The world has changed. My black hair has become grey as well.
And with unmatched passion for the story.
Do not monopolize the conversation.
When it's 100% news that matters. It's News Today with Rajdeep Sardesai. Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. Only on India Today TV. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching
Welcome back to Tech Today, guys. I'm your host, Ayush Alabadi, and I must concede on this show that I am addicted to social media like a lot of y'all. Now, a few weeks ago, I posted a reel on Instagram. Yes, I know it's ironic. I posted it on social media to find out what y'all think about social media addiction. I got a plethora of comments on that reel, and thank you so much for that. And some of those opinions that y'all shared were very interesting. That made me ask the question whether this is a real thing, and shall we start treating platforms like Instagram as the addiction machines they have become? Should we start regulating screen time for family members? All of these are questions that have been going on in my mind, and now I want to pass them on to you and, of course, get an expert opinion as well. Here's a special report.
Well, thanks for playing Inception with my mind, Ayush. Because I saw that reel that you had put out, and it actually really got me thinking as well. And I was wondering, am I also addicted to Instagram or these other social media platforms? So to get some more answers, I stepped out, and my first pitch stop was at Dr. Ashish Roy's clinic, who's a psychoanalytic therapist. And I really wanted to understand from him, are there any signs to look out for to kind of understand if one is addicted to social media?
Yeah, so one thing is that we don't have a life now which is outside of social media. There'll be very few people who won't have an Instagram account or an email account or a Facebook account. So people are always connected to social media in some way. So it has a kind of penetrating effect that it invades every part of your life. Now, there are people who find a huge sense of validation by posting about themselves, and that can work in a good way, that can increase their narcissism. But there are also people who get very anxious when this happens, that they have to keep on posting, or they are unable to do their work and they are hooked on to looking at their phones or hooked on to just doing things, and they keep on distracting themselves. So unfortunately, they don't understand why they are distracting themselves or what they are scared of, but then they go onto social media and they spend a lot of time there. They are unable to do their work, and at a certain life stage, like for young children, people going to school, since so much schooling happen online, I don't feel it's a very good medium, because it really destroys your attention. Whenever two people are talking, now they are present with each other, but now they can also be absent because both of them can be looking at their phone. So human connection always gets interrupted also because of social media.
Any kind of red flags, social media red flags to look out for, that you were too addicted to any platform?
Social media and media, I mean, they are different, but there's one thing which is similar, that they always focus on the outside. So it's always about putting an image of yourself. So when people start thinking that this has become an obsession, that every moment has to be, now substantiated by social media, by Instagram or a Facebook post, then they should start thinking that why am I doing this? If you're going to sleep, you're using your phones right before that, you're feeling wired, you're not sleeping well, you get up in the morning, you do the same thing. So you're constantly in a mode of anxiety. And unfortunately, media produces anxiety. It does. And you have to protect yourself from it, because these are signs that your mental state, you're not feeling calm. You're constantly looking for more information. Although, are you really engaging with that information? Are you actually doing something constructive with it? Or are you just kind of distracting yourself? And then you feel like a lot of time is lost.
Have social media platforms become addiction machines? It is a simple question, but we need to talk to more people to actually find out, is the answer actually common amongst everyone, or people don't really feel so? Let's find out. Are you on Instagram, and how active are you on it?
I am, but I'm not very active on Instagram.
I've been active since I was 13, since I made my Instagram account. Yeah, it's been like a thing.
Yeah, once in every 2 hours.
At least 2 hours in a day.
If your internet went out, would you start getting irritable if you were not able to sort of access your social media platforms?
I will feel a little bit irritated.
Pretty irritated.
So, okay, he's pretty irritated. What makes you feel that you're addicted?
All these things that you asked, I genuinely get irritated when I'm not on social media every half an hour, 1 hour.
I mean, there are times, even in my house, sometimes the internet is not fast enough or it's not working and there's no signal. I'll literally be standing in the garden with my 4G, like, just trying to see what's happening with other people. Major FOMO.
Well, a few years back, I would be okay with it. given the current situation, yeah, it does bother me.
If somebody you follow on Instagram and you regularly like their posts, it could be somebody you're crushing on, it could be somebody you like, it could be somebody whose posts you comment on. If they don't reciprocate, does it bug you?
No, I don't follow people who don't follow me back.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Very true one.
To me, it doesn't matter, but I know it matters to a lot of people, right? A lot. So, absolutely.
Not just because of the social media, I will feel a little bit irritated.
Yeah, like I posted after 2 years, so I put a lot of thought into it. What photo should I post? So like, काफी सोचना पड़ता है.
So in the last 6 years, I have one post. So I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay, what about no, even I post very rarely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, basically they're all active on Instagram and they don't post. We have stalkers over here, basically. Like if it's an ex or an ex-employee or an ex-boss or so.
Well, if it's your ex, first thing is you're blocked, right? So it's tough to get there, but...
That was a bad breakup for sure. How often do you stalk people? Okay, fine. That gives it away. How many followers would you have?
3,700, that matters.
Would you ever delete a post if it didn't get enough likes?
Nah, if I like it, rest of the world could adjust or I won't.
Are you using Instagram as a base to kind of promote your brand and the apparel?
That's the main marketing tool for me right now.
What's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning? Is it Instagram?
It's Instagram, yeah, it is Instagram. So you got me there.
Where we wake up and the first thing we do is we open Instagram.
Tackling the question of addiction with social media, most of my realization has been how I'm using it and not why I'm using it.
So every time you visit Instagram, it's not always for business inquiries?
Oh, not at all.
I think it's more, it's a gossip place, right? To put it in polite terms. We might not do it openly, but it's a way of getting to know what everybody's up to.
How often do you post?
In 4-5 days, max in 4-5 days.
How many hours on Instagram on a day?
4-5.
So basically, it is also to keep an eye on what everyone else is doing?
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Okay, how many followers do you have on Instagram?
I have around 180 something.
Well, what about you?
8K. 11K. No, 8K. Something.
What about you?
So I have like 1,200.
If you put out a photograph which you like and someone posts a comment which is negative, how much does that affect you?
He always do with me. He always send me a personal DM. This is not looking good. Just delete that.
So after talking to several people, basically we have to admit that while some people are still in the closet about being addicted to social media platforms, some people are pretty much out there accepting it and some are just simply stalking others. Overall, I feel social media is impacting everyone a bit too much for comfort, and I think what Ayush has started, it's a conversation and a discussion which has to continue further. Back to Ayush.
Well, if you're hooked on to social media, then you are not alone. Another recommendation from the Tech Today team and this special show is if you are addicted to Instagram, YouTube, Facebook and the like, then just write into our social media handles and tell us what you think about our shows. Watch a lot of our content on Business Today and India Today as well. This is your host Ayush Alavadi signing off from your favorite technology show. Adios.